You have to accept the recording.
It's a recording in progress.
All
Yeah.
right, my friends, welcome to episode 2 of Conversations with the Conleys. We're excited that you joined us tonight. So we thought we would have the discussion about our quote unquote origin story, about how we connected, got married, some of the background stuff. And you'll hear Bob's point of view, my point of view, and somewhere in the middle is the actual truth. But we actually celebrated our 11th wedding anniversary this year, but we had an interesting journey to find one another. So, Bob, I'm going to let you begin the conversation as he takes a swig of his cocktail to prepare him for this.
You need a bracer for this kind of thing. So we met in 2012 again. So we'd met earlier than that, but we met this time in 2012. I was on the board of the George Washington Masonic National Memorial Association. And it always had, I believe it still does, its summer meeting uh, of the full board in August. It's hot and nasty, and one of the best things we ever did was put air conditioning in that building. But um, so it's later in the day, evening sometime, heading back home through Reagan National. And Reagan National on a Friday is always a zoo because everybody's getting out. All of the politicians and their staff are heading out. But in any case, got to gate 18, and I hear from behind me somebody say, "Are you Bobby Conley?" Or something along those lines. "Excuse me, are you Bobby Conley?" And I turn around and I said yes, but my heart took a jump. So that's when I saw her, and I knew her from earlier days, but I didn't know her well, and I knew her by her married at the time name, which was Shaw, and but we chit chatted a little bit, but we were boarding. And she got to board first because she was up in front in first class, and I was back in steerage. And so walked past her, going back to the cattle car, and she says I texted, but I can't remember that. I've never really been very good at texting, but in any event, I wanted to when we got to Detroit, get a cup of coffee or something. She says cocktail, but at that time I didn't really drink that much, so um, so in any event, got off the plane in Detroit, and she was nowhere to be seen. So I'm standing in the middle of the huge Northwest Terminal A, which is the big one, and looking forlornly, looking for her, and she was nowhere to be found. And I'd pretty much decided that that's how it was going to be. But on the way home, as often happened, I called Dave and to tell him about the weekend and or the time spent at the board meeting and so forth, and just catch up and told him about you. And he said, well, he said, I know JoNeil, so we're going to get that put together. And I said, no, please don't. And he said, oh no, he said, this was meant to be. And it ends up it was. So we did that. Then I think sometime later in the fall, we reached out to each other and had you come over for a Christmas party where we were decorating. That was my first Christmas tree. I
Yeah.
believe it was the first one. It may have been the second one. I'm not exactly sure, but in any event, everybody in my world at that time, my office staff and Dave and Tim and Trish Marshbanks and a whole bunch of other people decided that Don and Joe Boyer
Wheelers.
decided that I needed to have a Christmas tree, and I didn't want one because they're a pain in the neck. Um, Actually, pain somewhere lower, but we'll go with a pain in the neck.
Hmm.
In any case, I went to Kmart and they had the last tree. I bought it, and we had a tree decorating. I said you can come to the party as long as you bring an ornament because I don't have that. So we did. We had a good time, and you showed up at that,
I did.
and the rest, as they say, is history. But I don't
Yeah.
think it was in December. I think that it was earlier than that.
I'm not, yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah,
But
and then in December, on
oh,
Christmas
Eve.
Eve, is when our first date was, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Now my story
Memorable
goes back a
experience.
little. I'm gonna go a little bit earlier than that, into the year 2000 when you were Grand Master. I had been divorced for a couple years at that point, and my friend Pam was Grand Guardian of Job's Daughters, and I was always the ceremony girl. And we were hosting honoring of the Grand Master along with the Prince Hall Masons, and your theme was beacon and lighthouses. And I'm telling you what, I ran myself ragged trying to make that the most spectacular thing in the whole wide world, and you never even noticed that I was there. So I apologize for the light here too. It's going to be sunset quickly, but um, so I kind of went about my business. And I think, we both, you didn't mention the fact that you'd been single for about 16 years at that point. But in the year 2000, I'd been divorced for a little while. And I went about my business. I was a single mom. I finished my master's degree, worked on my doctoral degree, was committed to raising my daughter, just went about my business. But in 2006, I took a job in Washington, D.C. as a healthcare consultant. And I worked for the advisory board. So I was traveling, 4 hospitals in 5 days. And I had actually, at that point, I think I just finished my doctoral degree. And that was a big accomplishment for me. It was kind of like, yes, I matter. And so that particular August night, my best friend from the advisory board, Jim Kane, had run me through DC. It was hot, it was sweaty, it was nasty, it was August. We got to the gate and I sat down, and I swear I looked like a dish rag. I mean, hot and sweaty and nasty, and kind of made eye contact with Mr. Conley, looked at his suitcase to make sure that really was who I was talking to. But like I said, I got on the airplane, and of course he went to the back. And I think we made contact as he passed by, but there was no way in heck I was staying because I had a connecting flight to Flint. So I got off the plane and I hightailed it to the beacon course, thinking there's nothing going to happen with this, because I had made up my mind that I was okay by myself. I didn't need anybody. I would raise my child. I was all these things. And then there he was, and everything changed in that moment. And so I went to the Christmas party that fall, sat and chatted with your mother. She was delightful, loved Candace, the whole family. But our first date was Christmas Eve. And any other single moms who are listening to this, if your kid is going to your ex's on Christmas Eve, you start crying days in advance. And my love language is gifts, in case anybody wants to send me anything. And so I was going to give Leslie every gift I could possibly give her. So I decided she needed a futon for her bedroom. So I called up my new friend, and I said, "You've got a truck. Come to my house. We're going to go pick up this futon." And then we picked up the futon in the afternoon, went to church at First Presbyterian Church, Christmas Eve service where they turn the lights on, do the silent night, all the things. But I think you have a story about the meal that was prepared for you that evening.
Yeah, so this is a precautionary tale for all bachelors. We had a delicious dinner. It was Cornish game hens,
Mm-hmm.
and they were wonderful. It was delicious. The food, it was wonderful. And I had been a bachelor for a long time, so I didn't eat very well. But I'm a pretty fair cook. But in any case, it was delicious. It wasn't until I learned much later that I learned that that meal was concocted and prepared by her sister Faye, who lived around the corner from JoNeil at the time. And while we were getting the futon, she brought it over and plugged it in, and so forth and so on. So I was under the mistaken impression JoNeil could cook. She cannot.
Yep.
No, she's not. She's better than she was. And tonight we had a very good dinner. But when I knew it was really going south was she had made for Leslie's birthday chicken and rice, and I damn near broke a tooth on that rice. It was like eating rocks. And JoNeil said, "Would you like seconds?" I said, "No, thank you, I'll pass." And Leslie said, "I do, and I want that brown burnt stuff on the side. It's the best." So
Yeah.
the poor child, has gone through life believing that burned rice is the best
Yeah.
part of chicken and rice. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's
Exactly.
only one of many, many, many horrifying concoctions that have been presented to me over the years.
Well, and the kitchen fires, I think, are,
Kitchen
I've heard
fires have been numerous. What was my Christmas present to you 2 years ago?
it was one of those fire blankets
Fire blanket. Yep.
that you,
Yep. That
that you
you put
can
over the fire to put it
that you
out.
can put
Yes.
over the fire.
Yes.
I caught the dishwasher on fire. That's a whole
Not the
nother
dishwasher. That's a new one. We
that,
we'll
yeah.
talk through that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So we dated for a year and a half or so, and then you decided to propose. You want to
mhm.
bring the circle all the way around to where you proposed at?
Well, yeah, so it was at another, I don't know if I proposed what the occasion was. I can't recall
It
that, but
was the gala, the George
it was the
Washington
gala.
Gala.
Yeah, so it was in
Yeah.
February. And yeah, it was at the it was in the Hilton
Hmm.
in Alexandria there. We were going
Yes.
out to
Yes.
up the hill to the gala banquet, as I call it.
Yeah.
And I was probably in a kilt. I can't
I
remember that, but I might have
can't
been.
remember if you had it then or you got it the next year, but yeah.
Might have, yeah. Um, but yeah, that's when we got married,
Yeah.
or when we got
But
engaged.
we met each other after the George Washington summer thing and we got engaged at the winter thing. And um I think both of us, if I recall correctly, you had said you had offered a prayer to God that you were tired of being by yourself. If I remember correctly.
Yeah, I didn't. It wasn't a prayer. I don't want it to sound weird. It wasn't a prayer. I just, I was perfectly content. I had finally found, um, I don't know any other word for it, but just contentment with where I was and who I was and what my life was. It was in a condo, that I loved. It was new. I bought it brand new, and it was mine. And work was good, um, and I was just standing at the island in the little kitchen part of it, and I just said I don't want to be alone anymore. And 2 months later is when we met.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your adjustment from single person
It's
to
ongoing.
stepfather married to me with the
Yeah,
chaos that
ongoing.
ensues.
Yeah.
You probably many of you already know this, but I am an extrovert
Hmm.
and Bob is an
Introvert.
introvert. He doesn't talk in the morning until he's had coffee, NPR, news, and all the things. And I wake up talking. And how have you adjusted to that, Bob?
I haven't.
Good answer.
It's still it's still a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what holds, I think some of the things that brought us together was this understanding. I understood masonry. I was a fourth generation grandpa, great grandpa, dad, all the things. So I had an understanding of what masonry was and what it could do. And it wasn't foreign to me. And I know that some folks who come in, who marry folks who are already in the craft, struggle with that. But I was like, I get this. I'm good.
Well, I think, I think in our case it's probably more to my point that opposites attract
Sure.
than the same. Um, you force me into situations which I wouldn't normally put myself in, but at the end of it, I actually probably enjoy myself doing it.
Such as,
Just the nonsense that you make me go through. Um, but I think that my Masonic piece of me is different
yeah,
from most who just belong because it really is my career. So when I get home, I can't remember if we watched a video on it or something where the woman said that the wife said he uses up all of his words in meetings all day long,
yeah,
and then he comes home and he doesn't have any left for me.
yeah,
And that, a lot of times that's how I feel. That
sure.
I'm just out. I'm done. I can't go any further. But you want to hear what the day was and what happened and all
Yeah,
these kinds of things. And it's just hard for me to do that, to talk. It's not that it's anything, that you don't want to talk about. It's just I'm done talking for the day and you're not. So it's been it's a learning curve for me to get to the point where I know that you have to have people talk to you, and that's me. And that just because I'm not necessarily wanting to do it, it's something that we need to do just because we're better because of it.
and
Yeah.
what's been the best part of these 11 years? And if you don't say Kennedy, I'm going to smack you.
The Snuffles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
My
Yeah.
little Kennedy and you and Les and Gary and the family and
And
um,
for those of you, this is Kennedy's castle right, right here. Our
yeah.
house has been,
Yeah. Thank you, Teresa.
yeah, there's just that's a castle, but
Yeah.
that has been, I think, for me watching you with her has been really fun.
Yeah.
As never having children or being around children, he doesn't always let me just say, he doesn't always get it, but he's doing good. He's doing pretty good where that's concerned.
Right. Yeah.
So any closing thoughts on our origin
Well,
story?
yeah, one that came to mind when we were talking about Washington and out in Alexandria. One of the men that I met a long time ago and was very dear to me was named Dick Fletcher, Richard
Oh,
Fletcher, and
yes.
Richard was the executive director of the Masonic Service Association when I knew him, and he and
Yeah.
his wife Judy were just very dear to us. They kind of took us under
Yeah,
their
that's true.
wing and just made us feel very welcome and very much cared about when we were out there. Dick passed away last week
Yeah.
um, as we're taping this, and it's just the I guess the curse of living a long, full, rich, active life is that you meet a lot of great people that you don't want to have to say goodbye to, but that you do.
Hmm.
And Dick is one of those people. No matter how long it had been, no matter
Yeah.
the circumstances. He was always just a genuinely kind and gentlemanly person, and I'm gonna miss him. But
Mhm.
Dick was just a great friend, and I'm gonna miss him. So
Yeah.
that was part of my history out in Alexandria, and being on active with the memorial and becoming a member of AW 22 and still, those are profound impacts on my life. Broadened my Masonic connections to where I know and treasure the friendships of Mark Tabbert and Sean Iyer and George Seegers and all of those people that I met out there. Um, and a lot of them are, in different places now, but we still stay in touch as best we can. So
Hmm.
that's all been important for me and you.
Yeah.
And I think that probably that became as important to me because of you and because
Mhm.
you're connected with me there.
Yes. Yes. So that's a little bit about us. We're going to bring this episode to a close, but we appreciate it if you subscribe, pay attention. Our next episode is going to be why we're doing this. So we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.